Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Today's question comes from Don Kraus. He's KN6TAC. He says, I have a NanoVNA. You may ask, why do I keep my NanoVNA in the original shipping bag? And the answer is because it's got some extra stuff in there. This is the NanoVNA. It's battery operated, or you can power it from your computer. And what it will do is a whole bunch of things. It's actually truly a vector network analyzer. Now, I have one little cable thingy. This is a microwave connector, and this is a standard SO239 that I can use on the antennas. Usually I just hook this to the computer because it's easier to deal with, but you can set this thing up so that you're measuring SWR. Now, I would ask you why you're looking for the SWR on that, because the SWR is, you generally would have an antenna connected. Now, you can look at return loss, and you'll do better with return loss. Now, it turns out that SWR and return loss are identical parameters in that there's a mathematical relationship between the two of them. Actual relationship, not a probabilistic relationship, okay? But again, when you're doing return loss, you want an antenna on the end. What you want to do is measure the coax for length, loss, and so on, and you can do that at a variety of frequencies. He has an NanoVNA, used it to sweep the SWR, there you go again. There's no antenna in here. Standing wave ratio, really, you can do the return loss because, and the return loss is going to be 100%, okay, because you've got an open-ended line, and it will reflect all of the power that you feed into it. So the return loss will be 1. Be complete return, and the SWR for that is infinite, okay, unless you put a terminating resistor across the thing, and then you can actually measure SWR. 300-foot run of AVA 5P-50-C Heliax 7/8" coaxial cable. That is quite an interesting piece of cable. People use that kind of cable for like VHF, UHF, even microwave at times. That's a hefty piece of cable. By the way, connectors for that thing are an issue. I swept the 20 meter, 40 meter, 2 meter, and 70 centimeter bands. I got some unusual results and was wondering if the NanoVNA is capable of analyzing such a long run of large diameter cable. If you get the return loss at not quite 1, that will give you some of the losses in the cable, okay? Theoretically, it's 1 because all the power is reflected, but a tiny, tiny little bit is absorbed by the cable. More and more is absorbed as you get up higher in frequency, okay? Now, what you should be measuring is measure the length of the cable, electrical length, at these different bands, because it will be different. And he was testing this feed line with a 50 ohm load. If you're absolutely positively convinced that's a 50 ohm load, then yes, you can look at the contribution to return loss. There should be no return loss from the 50 ohm resistor. I have right down here my 50 ohm load. This is an antenna dummy load made by Heathkit. I put it together when I was a teenager, in my late teens or early 20s. And I filled it with mineral oil. It's a paint can, and no matter how hard you put that lid down, the mineral oil seeps out. So it creeps out. So every so often I have to clean it up good, add a little mineral oil, and go back to what I was doing before. You can also put transformer oil in there, but good luck getting it. If you know somebody who works for a utility, you might be able to spring loose a gallon of it. So this is a 50 ohm line. So you can look at loss, return loss, measure return loss directly. Okay, you're going to find that the return loss is small, but not 0. Okay, now the NanoVNA is working properly on a 50-foot run of RG8. When you say you get some unusual readings, a couple culprits I would look at. First of all, the NanoVNA has these little microwave connectors. These are female connectors. Okay, so you need to connect the male to it. This is a male connector. And I bought these on Amazon. They were quite inexpensive. And this I put in, it goes in channel 0. And the parameter that it measures here is S11. And S11 is SWR. But you can, through the menu system in here, put in just about anything that you may want. So measure return loss, measure the impedance to make sure that it really is 50 ohm. It may not be. And measure, well, the length of the cable, the electrical length of the cable. It will give you the number of wavelengths, electrical wavelengths. Electricity in a cable that's mostly air dielectric will be quite low compared to coax cables like RG58. RG58 doesn't always have 100% shield coverage, whereas this cable does. So take a look, take some pictures, send me something, and I'd like to look at this more because I'm kind of curious. But the vector network analyzer is not limited to little tiny antennas or anything like that. It can take a look at something like this. But you need to have the proper connector. Just attaching wires to the center and the outside, okay, you've not got a 50 ohm transition. You need the proper connector on each end, because if you don't have that, you'll find that from your little wires to the great big thing, you're going to get an impedance bump, which is going to cause things to go haywire. So there you are. Good luck with your cable, which I'm going to tell you is very hard to deal with. I'm surprised you found a piece that long. Make sure it's dry all the way through. If it isn't quite dry, then, dry it out. Get a heat gun set on real low heat, connect it up to blow air through it, because the air will go through it. And then that will eventually dry out. That's just cardboard that's holding the center conductor in place. So you don't want to get any water in there, okay? So, yeah, go ahead and use your NanoVNA. Make sure you've got it set up right. There are the little Duma floppies you need in here to calibrate your NanoVNA before you use it. Do that. Do it every time before you're going to do any serious measurements. And until we next meet, don't forget to join as a member and 73.